Thank you for staying around. Our next guest is here. I'm glad to see him here. Mark Casse, the trainer of Wonder Godot and many other horses. Thank you very much for joining us tonight at the Post Live, Mark.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I'm done with the Wonder Godot. We're going to call her Wonder Godot, and we're just going to move on from there. Is that fair?
Godot.
Godot?
It's Wonder Godot.
Wonder Godot, okay.
I call her Wonder Woman, then I don't screw it up.
How is she doing? How's Wonder Godot doing?
She's doing wonderful.
You're excited about the Travers?
Very.
You know, it's funny. I was watching the Alabama last week, and the way Kenneth Peaks horse ran, I thought to myself, Mark's like kind of a free roll because she ran so well, it would have been hard to beat her. Eskimo's Kisses.
You know what? Honestly, I thought, you know, she could easily get beat in the Alabama as well. You know, it was. I thought it was a pretty tough race, and it turned out, you know, like you said, Kenny's filly did run extremely well.
So, you know, how do you see the Travers? Obviously, you've looked at it, and you're looking at the horses. I mean, when you look at a race, do you look at the other horse that much, or are you just really focusing on your horse?
I do a little bit of handicapping, but normally I leave it to guys like Irad or Johnny, and when I go to the paddock to talk to a rider, the only thing I really will tell them is if there's something that the horse likes or dislikes, you know. But I do. It looks like there's a fair amount of speed, and our filly wants to run away from there and not be too far back. She has just a real high cruising speed. She doesn't have a quick turn of foot. So if she has to make up a ton of ground, she's in trouble.
It seems like as she's getting better, she's almost putting herself in the game more.
Some of that's Johnny, too, getting her into the game. But also, Andy, as you know, the longer the races, the slower the first fractions are. So that puts her into the race there. When you're running a mile and a 16th, they're running faster early, and it gets her back, and it gets her in a little trouble. You saw, I know it wasn't a strong race, but she was very powerful in the Demoiselle.
Oh, yeah.
And there was her first shot to go a mile and 1/8. It was her first chance to be fairly close to the lead and to be into the bit. And that's what she likes to do.
You know, it's interesting. We talked about it a little bit at the draw. I feel like it's sort of an unfair thing. There's this assumption that, like, you're running in the Travers because you're trying to win the Eclipse Award. I think that's an unfair way to look at it. We talked a bit about the draw.
Yeah, that's not true at all. Look, if she wins the Travers, Monomoy Girl is still champion 3-year-old filly. Would we like to be champion 3-year-old filly? Of course. But we're going to have to do more than win the Travers. We're in the Travers to win the Travers.
Now, is there anything, you know, obviously running a filly against the boys? Listen, I mean, you had a lot of success with Tepin running against the boys. Is there a difference, though, to you in turf and dirt as far as, you know, mixing the sexes?
Good question. I mean, I've mixed the sexes now with turf, as you say, with Tepin. Done it plenty of times. We did it with Lexi Liu on the...
Who was second to California Chrome in the Hollywood Derby.
And she won. You know, she beat the boys in the Queen's Plate. We do that a little more up there because the Canadian Oaks is run 3 weeks before the Queen's Plate. So it allows you to do it. You would see it happen more here if, say, for instance, the Kentucky Oaks was 3 weeks out from the Kentucky Derby, or the Alabama was 3 weeks out of the Travers. So a lot of it is, the reason you don't see the fillies running against the colts is because there's always two options, and most people take the lesser of the two evils and let things kept for us.
Well, right. Which you either feel like you're really smart on Saturday, or I mean, listen, there's no guarantee you're winning the Alabama, as we know.
And this is the way I've always looked at things, and I know a lot of people criticize this for taking Tepin to Royal Ascot, and it turned out to be it worked out well. As I said to Gary, I said, if she wins the Alabama, everybody will know. I said, if she wins the Travers, the world will know.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes racing's about taking a shot like that. And
I mean, exactly.
You don't mind running. I mean, you're there. You're in the game.
I go back. You know, I got to spend a lot of time around Alan Jerkins when I was in my 20s, and I would listen to rant and rave. You know, he had all these ideas, and he would scream and yell, and He said, I don't understand these damn trainers and owners. He said, when they're running good, they want to rest them. You run them when they're running good and rest them when they don't run good. So far,
Sounds simple, right?
yeah, we've run her 13 months in a row, and she keeps running good, and I'm just going to keep running her until she doesn't.
Arguably runs better, actually.
Yeah, she does. I think when horses can actually get into a nice pattern, it's better for them. I'm a believer in the more you run, the better they get, and it's almost like if you can get over a little bit of period, they actually stay sounder. If you see where, you know, a horse breaks his maiden first time out impressively and then comes back and wins, those horses aren't staying around as long. I believe. I think I've trained probably 5 or 6 horses that won $750,000 or more that didn't break their mane for 5 or 6 starts.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, you look over. I mean, things have changed a lot now, and there's pressure on winning early and coming to Saratoga and winning. But you're right. I mean, you can even say always dreaming. A horse like him, right? He didn't come around till his 3-year-old year.
I had a conversation with Mr. Oxley, which anybody that knows anything about me knows that he's a very big part of my life. And we had a conversation the other night because we always struggle at Saratoga. And I said to him, you know, we always struggle at Saratoga. But I said, we go to Keeneland, we do well, and I said, we have won 4 Breeders' Cups and had 3 champions in the last 3 years or 4 years. I said, maybe I need to change and be more effective at Saratoga. He goes, no, don't change. You just keep doing it the way you're doing it. So we've had those conversations. I would never run a horse and not want to win.
Right.
But when I run first-time starters and sometimes second-time starters, it's not always my goal. We ran a horse the other day. In fact, Irad rode him, a horse called Wild Medagliora that we think a lot of. He ran good first time out, 3/4. Of course, everybody bet on him, and I ran him back 3/4. It wasn't ideally what I wanted to do, but I had to sit and wait till September 3rd to run him 7/8.
Right.
And I said, no, I want to get another start into him because then I'm going to take him to Kentucky and I'm going to run him a mile.
Right.
And if he runs really well, which I think he's a good horse, it'll set me up for the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. So sometimes when I'm making moves, I'm trying to look 2 and 3 steps of or.
You have to.
And a lot of people wanted to say to me, they thought I should have ran in the 3rd leg of the Canadian Triple Crown.
And a mile and a half on the turf?
And I said, guys, I don't want to insult anybody, but it makes no sense for my long-term plan. And so sometimes when you see me doing things, it may not be for today. It may be, down the road. I always say, look, every horse I train to win the Breeders' Cup until they tell me they can't do it.
Well, you want to work backwards, right? I mean, aren't you always working backwards?
Absolutely.
You may not get there, the horse may get hurt, the horse may not be good enough. That's frequently going to be the case, but you want to, if you have the right horse and it stays sound, you want to have the ability to get somewhere, get to a goal.
Probably one of the, as far as long-term deals, was probably World Approval. World Approval was a very good 3-year-old. I'm not a very good 3-year-old. He was a pretty good 3-year-old, and I said to Mrs. Weber.
He won the Saranac here,
He won it, and he was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. And I said, but Mrs. Weber, he can't beat the good older horses. So let's send him home and give him some time, let him grow up. And we did. And he came back as a 4-year-old, and he came back pretty good. But I made a little mistake because he won the United Nations, going 1 mile and 3/8. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he wants to run 1.5 miles. So we ran a little while. And he started tailing off again. And I said to Mrs. Weber, I said, look, if we're ever going to win the Breeders' Cup with him, we're not going to do it going 1.5 miles. I said, let's give him a break and aiming for the mile. And we did. We gave him a break, and he
worked out.
Yeah, he won the Breeders' Cup.
Well, he's got an incredible pedigree to be a mile. I mean, it's incredible what that dam has done, right, with our horses. It's funny, you're talking about your owners, and I wanted to talk about some of your owners. You mentioned Mrs. Weber, Charlotte Weber. You've trained for them in Live Oak for quite a while. What's that relationship like?
Well, and I've known her for 50 years, but
through your father?
Through my father, and I really only started training for her about 5 years ago. And I think a lot of it may have been she was such good friends with my dad that she was a little concerned that if things didn't work out between us, that it could hurt her relationship with my father. So, but my dad would stay after and stay after. When are you going to let Mark train for you? So finally, about maybe 5 years ago, we started training for it. First 10 horses I ran for it, maybe beat 3 total horses in the first 10 starts. And my dad's like, and then unfortunately my dad passed away a couple years ago, so he didn't get to see the Breeders' Cup win, but he did get to see a lot of big wins, and nothing made him prouder than when we win for Charlotte.
You know, you mentioned your dad. I knew your father when I was a little kid. I met him at the horse track up here in the summers when I would go. He'd be over there, and your father's a legend. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that your dad's a legend in racing.
Yes, but not in for the necessarily the. I had to overcome my father. I had to overcome a lot of my father's tactics when I first started.
You knew how to cash a bet, your dad.
Yeah, well, and my dad could plan for a year to cash a bet.
Yeah,
and everywhere I went, I was kind of, okay, we know your dad. Don't do that. And I was like, look, I'm not doing that.
But he had a lot to do with establishing Ocala in Florida as a major racing center.
Yeah, OBS. I've been in Ocala now. I'm 57. So we moved there when I was 6, 51 years. So it's...
You have a training center there now, right?
Right. So what happened was, anybody that followed me knew for a long time we went to... I actually was leading trainer in Kentucky in the 80s. Then I got to where I liked Toronto because I could go there for 8 or 9 months and spend the next 4 months in Ocala. So I liked that. It was nice, and I was doing fine. Yeah. You know, I had some time off. And then, of course, Norman came along 10 years ago or so, and, Dad, we got to start running in the U.S. We got to do this. Well, then we tried to run off the synthetic on the dirt. It's very difficult to do. And then guys would say, well, he's 1 for 45 on the dirt.
Not me. I never said that. I might have said like 1 for 90, but not for 1 for 145.
So anyways,
I don't think it ever got that bad.
About 5 or 6 years ago, we changed everything to a way we train. We even changed our training center because we would train at OBS on synthetic. Now we have a really nice dirt train, and so things changed. Thanks to you.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to help. See, that's what I'm here. I'm here to help. Since you mentioned him, let's talk about your son, Norm, who's recently left and gone off on his own. I mean, obviously now you'll compete against him, but I have to think you would hope that you'll be competing against him, right? I mean, that would be great.
One of the proudest moments that I can think of was opening day, Schuylerville. I really missed my dad. I have a lot of memories with my father because I was coming here since I was 8 years old with him. And to see all the Casses running in the Schuylerville, because the Schuylerville's been going since we've been coming. And I think he would have been very proud. And a lot of people like to make, well, you want to beat your son. No, I said, I don't care. I just want a Casse to win the race.
I'm sure you'd like to win, but you'd be happy if Norman won. Right.
Of course.
You're supposed to want to win.
And Norman's done extremely well. You know, I mean...
Short period of time.
Yeah, he has, and he'll continue to do well. He's a smart young man that is a good horseman, and he'll do well.
Yeah. Well, he's got a first-time starter in Saturday. I think he's in town now. Gabby told me he's in town.
Yeah. Whispers are that one's pretty good.
He told me. Yeah, she told Gabby, said, well, if you don't know, Gabby Godet, who of course works with me, is marrying his son Norm in 2 weeks, 16 days.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
Yeah.
So we're very excited about that. I said, Norman, could you not put it 2 days before the Keeneland sale? And he said, Dad, he said, we have to do Saratoga, Gabby works, then this is the only time. So my daughter, Camille, just got married, and she got married a week after the Queen's Plate in Toronto. She goes, Dad, I know you're going to be there for the Queen's Plate. You got to stay a little extra, and I'll make sure it's between the Queen's Plate and the Prince of Wales. I said, okay.
She's more thoughtful than Norman.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, Norman, when I looked at the scheduling, I don't think Norman could have done it any other way. So.
Yeah, and the good news, it's so close to Saratoga, I'm not going. So that worked out well for them as well.
Oh, really? I thought you were going.
It's just too close. I'm in a body bag after Saratoga. They could like ship me back to New York.
I'm in a body bag and it's not even over yet.
I know. But to show you what kind of a guy Mark is, I wanted him to come on the show, and you're having a brutal Saturday. The horse got beat at 3-5. I texted Mark. I said, I don't want to text him. He just lost another race. He said, I texted like 20 minutes after the race and said, did any change come on Saturday? And he answered me back in about a minute, said, I'll be there. And a lot of guys wouldn't do that. So give a big hand to Mark Casse, who was not only helpful to us, but one of the great sports in the game. Before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit about Classic Empire last year and the importance of being in big races, but the frustrations of having a horse. And it's a miracle that you got that horse to the Derby, a race he surely would have been second, maybe could have won. And he could have won the Preakness. He ran the best race in there, and I say that having a friend of mine winning the race, but you know, should have won that race as well. How incredible it was to get him there, as difficult a horse he was, and how frustrating it must have been.
Well, we can talk about it a little bit more now than I could have talked about it when it was happening, because everybody was only getting 5% of the story and whatever. But he was in probably the greatest accomplishment of my life, and it was not just because of me, but it was because of our team. What we were able to do, because I don't know that anybody knows, but we got him down to, he was fine. Here's the horse. If he could get into a pattern, if you could get him into a pattern, then you'd get him all right. A lot of people, 6 days before the Breeders' Cup, he couldn't walk. I mean, we hardly could get him. He had hurt his foot, had a foot abscess. We get him to the Breeders' Cup. He wins the Breeders' Cup.
Runs one of the best Breeders' Cup juveniles ever, arguably. Ran unbelievably
and
well.
Couldn't walk.
Unbelievable.
Hardly. We had to get him. We were afraid we couldn't get him to the plane, and it was just a foot abscess. He got over that. We got him to South Florida, and he just started where he wouldn't train. So we brought him back to Ocala, where we broke him, and we kind of just broke him again. And we had, it was funny, we have a kid, his name's Martin Rivera. He's worked for me 20-some years, and he would handle all the tough horses, and he broke them. The first time, he weighs 170 pounds, and we worked Classic Empire, 5/8 of a mile on the training track, and he went 101. I said Secretariat couldn't go in 101 with Martin on him. And then, so we got him where he was going, and I'll tell you what, the other thing is, Julian Leperoux would get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and drive to Ocala to breeze him. So I get a call one morning from Dubai, and it's Bob Baffert. He said, hey, Mark, Bob and I are good friends. And he said, why don't you work that horse out of the gate? I said, Bob, do you not think I haven't attempted that? I said, I would go backwards or whatever. It doesn't matter. But him winning the Arkansas Derby was one of the greatest feats. And until the day I die, I'm going to believe if he's not cremated in the first 100 yards, that I think he wins the Kentucky.
There's an argument he would have. He certainly couldn't have been worse than second, and he absolutely could have won that race. I agree.
There was a big inside bias.
Yep.
Nobody was closing. He came from the clouds, and he just kept running. And then that was harder on me than losing the Preakness, believe it or not. Yeah. I kind of felt in the Preakness that at least he got a shot.
Yeah.
As a trainer, and if you ask me Saturday, what do I want for Wonder Godot? I just want her to have a clean trip and be safe. I want them all to be safe, and it is what it is. Yeah. She's going to do her very best. Just want her to have her best chance.
Well, we hope she does have her best chance, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck, man. Thanks so much. Mark Casse.
I just want to say one thing. Oh, he left. One of the things that's going to make her have her best chance is the guy that was talking before me.
Yeah, Irad's the best, and I agree. He will give her her best chance. Mark Casse, thanks so much.